Welcome to this explainer. Okay, today we are tackling something huge. We're going to break down exactly how to escape that exhausting, seemingly endless paycheck-to-paycheck cycle. And we're going to do it using a really straightforward 7-day system from our source material. Our main focus today, showing you exactly how to calculate your bleed number, which is the absolute game changer here. All right, let's dive right in.
So let me ask you a quick question. You know that very specific feeling? It's payday. You check your bank app, and for about, 12 glorious seconds, you actually feel kind of rich. But then you blink, your rent hits, a streaming subscription you completely forgot about hits, then you buy gas, groceries, maybe some random annual fee drops, and suddenly you're doing mental math at the grocery store checkout. You're telling yourself, okay, if I keep this under 37 bucks, I might just survive until Friday. If that sounds familiar, you are squarely in the paycheck-to-paycheck cycle. And honestly, the worst part is that it makes you feel like you're personally failing. But the reality? You're just stuck in a system designed to keep people stuck.
Here is our roadmap for today. 1. The paycheck-to-paycheck trap. 2. Calculate your bleed number. 3. Building a quick buffer. 4. Systems over willpower. And 5. The psychology of margin.
Starting with Section 1, the paycheck-to-paycheck trap. Why income isn't the real problem.
We really need to completely reframe how we think about financial stress. Look, living paycheck to paycheck is a failure of your systems, not your personal motivation. It's so common to assume, well, if I just made a little more money, all my problems would vanish, right? But according to the source material, it doesn't really matter whether you're bringing in $3,000 a month or $10,000 a month. If your habits and your bills just naturally expand to match whatever income you have, the result is literally identical. You still end up gasping for that next paycheck like it's oxygen. So it's really not about that top-line income number. It's entirely about what happens to it after it hits your account.
So here's the crucial takeaway. The actual villain here is zero margin. Living paycheck to paycheck isn't just about a low savings balance. It means you have absolutely no buffer between you and the real world. And let's be real, life is always going to do life things. Your car breaks down, you get a weird medical bill, you drop your phone. The data on this is actually pretty wild. Studies show that a massive chunk of people would seriously struggle to cover even a basic $400 emergency without having to borrow money from somewhere.
And when you don't have that buffer, your brain shifts straight into scarcity mode. You go into pure survival mode, just trying to make it through the week. That totally understandable panic is what leads people to rely on credit cards just to breathe. But here's the catch. With credit card interest rates often sitting around 20% or even higher, that quick fix rapidly mutates into a punishing, incredibly expensive trap.
Which brings us to Section 2. Calculate your bleed number. This is the math behind your escape plan.
We're at day 1 of the 7-day system. And as I mentioned earlier, calculating this bleed number is the absolute core focus of our explainer today. If you want out of the cycle, you need this specific math. Now, most people think getting their finances together means sitting down all weekend to build this massive, anxiety-inducing, color-coded budget. You absolutely don't. You really only need this one single metric, your bleed number. Think of it as your financial baseline. It's simply your monthly take-home pay minus your strictly required monthly spending. And by required, we mean things you literally cannot survive without. We're talking housing, utilities, transportation to keep your job, minimum debt payments to keep the lights on, basic groceries, and a basic phone plan. Nothing extra. Let's actually walk through how you calculate this, using a real-world example directly from the source. Okay, say your take-home pay is $3,200. Now let's subtract the absolute, unskippable requirements. Rent is $1,400, utilities and internet, $220. Your car and insurance take $450. Minimum debt payments run $280. Basic groceries are $450. And let's say phone and gas combined to $230. That brings your total required spending to $3,030. So you take your income, $3,200. Minus that required $3,030, and you are left with exactly $170. That $170, that is your bleed number. It shows you the stark reality of your baseline. It means for literally everything else in your entire life for the month, you have exactly $170. Figuring this out is huge because it instantly clears away the financial fog.
So your primary mission for day 1 is to just knock out these 3 simple steps. Open up your bank app, pinpoint that truly required spending, and subtract it from your take-home pay to find your bleed number. And hey, I want to be super clear about something. If you do this math and your bleed number is negative, please do not panic. It is not a moral failure. It is literally just math. And the great thing about math, we can fix it. You just have to know where your actual starting line is.
All right, Section 3, building a quick buffer. This covers days 2 to 4 of the 7-day system. Now that you know your bleed number, we use it to aggressively carve out some breathing room. On day 2, your only goal is to build a tiny 7-day survival buffer. Listen, we are not talking about a giant, fully funded 6-month emergency fund yet. For most folks, this just means getting a quick $100 to $300 into a separate account. You could sell an old guitar in the closet, have a totally no-spend weekend, or just scrape 25 bucks over. The goal is just to have enough cash on hand to stop a tiny emergency from forcing you to use a credit card. Remember, the golden rule here is progress, not perfection. Moving on to day 3, this is where we stop the leaks. The source makes a fascinating point here. Most people don't suffer from one massive spending problem, they suffer from 10 tiny ones. It's 10 bucks here, 14 bucks there, app subscriptions that just run forever in the background. So you're going to do a fast 15-minute subscription audit. Comb through your bank statements for anything recurring. If you haven't used it in 30 days, cancel it. If you have a premium tier of something you barely use, downgrade it. The goal is to easily free up $30 to $100 a month. And boom, that newly freed up cash goes straight into improving your bleed number and building your buffer.
Day 4 is highly actionable. You are going to negotiate your fixed bills. Why? Because lowering just one fixed cost by 50 bucks a month literally saves you $600 a year. The source actually gives us this exact word-for-word script to use on your internet, phone, or insurance providers. You literally just call them up and say, "Hi, my bill is too high and I'm considering switching. Are there any promotions or lower-cost plans available?" Honestly, you would be blown away by how often just asking this one simple question works to lower your required spending, which directly improves your bleed number.
Section 4, Systems over Willpower. Automating your financial margin.
Now we're into days 5, 6, and 7. This is where we lock in all the progress you just made. Here's the truth. Budgeting with pure willpower, it always fails eventually. You get tired, you get stressed, and you slip up. You have to replace willpower with an automated system. On day 5, you set up a 2-account system. This is a brilliant, completely underrated trick. You separate your money into a bills account and a spending account. On payday, the exact amount of money you calculated for your required fixed costs, your bleed number math, is automatically routed directly into the bills account. Then, your weekly discretionary cash drops into your spending account. This entirely cures what the source calls one big account chaos, and you never have to guess what money is actually safe to spend again.
Day 6 brings a bit of a harsh reality check. You have got to stop treating high-interest credit cards like they're just an extension of your income. Look, when money is tight, a credit card can feel like a lifeline, but at 20% interest, that lifeline is basically poison. So you apply the freeze and replace rule. You freeze your credit cards for 7 days, no swiping, and you replace it with this mindset. If the money isn't sitting right there in your spending account, the purchase just doesn't happen. Also, if you're already carrying debt, your absolute priority has to be minimum payments first, buffer second. Without that tiny buffer we built, the second your tire goes flat, you're right back to the credit card anyway.
Finally, day 7. This is where you lock the entire machine into place using automation. Forget complicated spreadsheets. We're using consistency. You set up the rules so your bill's money transfers automatically the second you get paid. You set up an auto transfer of just $10 to $25 into your buffer. You put your minimum debt payments on autopay. And lastly, you start a new habit, a super quick 10-minute Sunday money check. You sit down, sip some coffee, and just review your bills, your spending, and your buffer. That simple consistency is the secret to building lasting margin.
Section 5. The psychology of margin. Let's talk about why this system actually works.
So why does this deceptively simple 7-day system completely change people's financial lives? The source shares this incredible anecdote about a guy who literally felt hunted by his own bills. Every single tiny surprise was a full-blown crisis. But after he ran this exact system, within just a week, he had a couple $100 sitting in a buffer, he had lowered his monthly bills, and he had separate accounts that finally stopped the chaos. But you know what the biggest change was? It actually wasn't the math. It was the fact that the constant underlying stress just evaporated. As the quote perfectly puts it, buffer buys calm, and calm leads to better decisions. You finally get to stop reacting out of pure panic. So, if we distill this whole explainer down, here is the genuinely hopeful truth about escaping the paycheck-to-paycheck cycle. You don't actually need some massive miraculous raise to get out. You really just need 3 highly achievable pillars. You need a buffer. You need a system, and you need a few key expense wins to fix your bleed number. Once you establish that margin, literally everything else in your financial life becomes exponentially easier to handle.
Which leaves us with this final thought today. I want to challenge you to really imagine this.
What is your very first day of actual financial freedom going to feel like? Just picture the profound relief of the very first time a completely unexpected bill shows up in the mail and you don't panic. You don't even flinch. You just pay it straight from your buffer and you move on with your day like it's nothing. That is the feeling of true margin. Now that you have the 7-day blueprint and you know exactly how to calculate your bleed number, the only question is, are you ready to start building yours?